So, the phylum Ctenophora, these are your comb jellies, like combing your hair, C-O-M-B. Ctenophora means bearing combs, so C-T-E-N-O, pronounced with a silent T, Tino, phora, bearing, like an amphora, is a device for bearing liquids. How do we know if we're looking at a ctenophore? Well, they look kind of like jellyfish, true jellyfish, which are in the phylum Cnidaria, in the class Scyphozoa, but ctenophores are definitely different. There's a couple of ways we can tell. One is they have biradial symmetry, which you can see here in this particular organism in this animated GIF here. They are both radially symmetric and at the same time bilaterally symmetrical, which is not true for all Scyphozoan jellies. Another way you can tell is because ctenophores don't have stinging cells or cnidocytes that true jellyfish do. They have instead something different, which are called coloblasts. Coloblast means that they have cells that are gluey, so they can stick to their prey and get attached to it in that way. Ctenophores are also quite iridescent and bioluminescent, as you can see very clearly in this animation here again, that these rows of flashing lights are actually produced by the organism. And while some jellies do have some bioluminescence to them, this type of pattern of flashing of light is only seen in the comb jellies. Another thing that you see in cnidarians that you don't see in Scyphozoan jellies is the way that they move. This particular jelly, you can see it's just kind of flowing along. It's not pulsing like a Scyphozoan jelly does in order to move around. And the reason that it flows like that so fluidly, so smoothly, is because what it is using for locomotion are the eponymous teens. These rows of fused cilia, of which they have eight of these rows of the teens that sort of work like a series of tiny little oars. They're microscopic, so you can't really see them rowing, but the effect of it is that it gives it this very smooth motion compared to what we're going to see when we see true jellies in the Scyphozoa. So these are ctenophores. This is also a ctenophore, very different type of ctenophore. But again, you can see it's 8 rows of the teens. And the coloblasts will be located down here. So most of these very iridescent forms are benthic. They're found at depth in marine habitats. But then there are some more freshwater ctenophores that are not quite so flamboyant. For example, Burrowie and ctenophores of the Burroidae, that family, they can be very cannibalistic. Whoa. And then deal with it. Let's see it one more time before we move on. Yep, one comb jelly eating another. Brings it into the GVC and deal with it. All right. So that's about all we have to tell you about ctenophores, which brings us to our next phylum, which are the Cnidaria, our other phylum that has a silent C at the beginning of it. And Cnidaria are so named because they have stinging cells called cnidocytes. So these are our true jellies, or jellyfish, as you may have called them in the past. In addition to a number of other radially symmetrical organisms like hydras, corals, and anemones. And if I click on this, it's going to go to a live jelly cam, and it's just going to go on until you get sick of looking at jellies. So I'm not going to click on this right now, but I am, maybe I'll put a link down in the description or something, so if you want to watch that for as long as you care to, you can. So how do we recognize a cnidarian? Well, cnidarians come usually in one of two forms, and they're kind of similar, except that one is modal and one is sessile. So the sessile form, or the form that doesn't really move around very much, is called a polyp. And a polyp kind of resembles an upside-down medusa, which is the modal form, or the moving form, locomotory form. Now, cnidarians, like ctenophores, are diploblastic. They only have two germ layers, ectoderm and endoderm. They don't produce mesoderm. So because they only have these two germ layers, that means a couple of things. One is the body only has two tissue layers. The gastrodermis, which is derived from the endodermis, and the epidermis, which is derived from the ectoderm. Okay, so you can see in here, the dark blue is the epidermis, the yellow is the gastrodermis, and then between those two layers, you've got a jelly-like layer called the mesoglia. So we've talked about a lot of meso things so far, so don't get confused between mesoglia, which is this layer in cnidarians, and the mesohyl, which is the layer between the outer and inner parts of a sponge, and mesoderm, which is a germ layer only found in the embryos of certain types of animals that don't include cnidarians. Okay? So, we have here, let's start with the polyp. The polyp has its epidermis, its mesoglia, its gastrodermis, and the gastrodermis lines what we call the GVC, or the gastrovascular cavity. And the medusas got that too. So the GVC is essentially the gut, or the stomach, and there's only one way in or out. So, unfortunately, from where we sit, if you're a cnidarian, your mouth also has to serve as your anus. So you bring food in, and then you digest it, and whatever's left over that is waste, it has to come back out through that same opening. Yeah, so there's that. But both polyps and medusiform cnidarians have tentacles, which are these lobe-like structures which you can use as appendages. They can move them around. They can use them to feed themselves. In addition, a medusa has kind of a structure hanging down from the bell. This up here that looks kind of like a bell, it's called a bell. And the clapper of the bell is called a manubrium, M-A-N-U-B-R-I-U-M, the manubrium. And often the medusa will have some oral arms or some little appendages around the mouth/anus to help bring food into the mouth. In addition, the polyp has a structure down here to help it anchor itself to its substrate. And that's called the pedal disc. Pedal, spelled like pedal, P-E-D-A-L. Only marine biologists say pedal. And in addition, there's this area between the tentacles and the mouth called the hypostome. Hypostome means under the mouth. Hypo, like a hypodermic needle, goes under your skin. And stome, meaning mouth. Like stomates on a plant kind of look like mouths. Anyway, so that's your generalized body plan for cnidarians, all cnidarians. But one of the most distinctive features of cnidarians that sets them apart from all other living organisms is that they have these specialized cells called cnidocytes. So here's a cnidocyte down here. Within the cnidocyte, these are your stinging cells. You've got a structure called a nematocyst. And nemato means thread, and cyst means bladder. And here you can see the thread that is wrapped around this barb-like structure here. So the way a cnidocyte works is you've got this structure here called a cnidocell, here labeled as your trigger, but we know it's called a cnidocell. When the cnidocell is moved, it causes the nematocyst to fire. So the thread is going to discharge. The barbed projection here is going to evert or turn inside out and get stuck into whatever the prey item is or whatever is attacking our cnidarian. The thing that really stings is that they have different types of venom, and the venom ranges from not particularly painful or not particularly potent relative to you or I, to very, very potent. To this thing could sting you and potentially kill you if it gets enough of the venom into you. And you would need immediate medical care in order to survive. So that is a cnidocyte. And all cnidarians have them. It's one of the shared derived characteristics of the Cnidaria. So my question to you is, do you want to see a nematocyst fire? Oops. Thought that was going to be cool. The answer, of course you do. So in the next video, I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to show you what Destin says on his very cool channel called Smarter Every Day.